For the better part of the last year, I've been hammering the same point over and over again. The wide receiver 2 situation in Pittsburgh. It's been one of the most glaring uncertainties on the roster, and I wasn't shy about saying it needed to be addressed loudly. But now things might have shifted. Not dramatically, not definitively, but just enough to warrant a closer look. So let's get into it. We're now in that little window right after training camp, where the real evaluations begin. The public practices are done. The easy narratives are over. Now it's about real football decisions, and the Steelers are stepping into one of the most revealing moments of their preseason, a joint practice with the Buccaneers at Acrisure Stadium. And yeah, it's closed to fans. The media will be in attendance, technically. But there's a catch. We're under regular season reporting rules, which basically means we can't actually describe anything that happens unless it's quoted directly from a player or Mike Tomlin. And even then, Tomlin's speaking before the session, not after. So, good luck getting anything meaningful from that setup. That said, don't let the lack of leaks fool you. These joint practices, coaches love them. They love the control. They love the secrecy. They love the fact that they can actually test things out without putting everything on tape for the rest of the league to dissect. They show stuff they wouldn't dream of revealing in a preseason game. And that's what makes this session, behind closed doors, tightly controlled, arguably more important than the actual preseason matchup coming up Saturday night against this very same Tampa team. It's in this type of setting where you really get to see which weapons are being prioritized, which connections are being emphasized, and where the staff's head is at regarding certain players and roles. And I'm going to say something that might surprise you. For the first time in a long time, I don't think the WR2 problem is the crisis it once was. I'm not saying it's solved, but something changed. The arrival of Jonnu Smith changed the whole offensive picture, and it forced me to reevaluate how this offense might be structured, not just in terms of depth charts, but in terms of actual roles. Let's rewind a bit. Months ago, I was told that Arthur Smith's plan for Calvin Austin was to play more of a WR3 type role, something like a slot hybrid, used in specific packages, situational, not as a primary option. Now sure, wide receivers coach Frisman Jackson, back during minicamp, said Austin was WR2. But I think what he really meant was that Calvin would rank second in the receiver room behind DK Metcalf, not that he'd be playing the prototypical WR2 role in Smith's offense. There's a difference, because in Arthur Smith's system, especially now with Jonnu involved, labels don't mean as much as roles and functions. And Jonnu isn't just another tight end. He's not depth. He's not filler. This guy was the leading receiver for the Dolphins last season, and not just among tight ends. He had 88 catches for 883 yards in Miami. That's not a fluke. That's a weapon. And the fact that he's been moved all around in Arthur Smith's offenses, back in Nashville, then again in Atlanta, tells you how trusted he is. He's going to get used a lot, and he's going to take targets that might have gone to a more traditional WR2. When you pair Jonnu with Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington, who, by the way, is still coming along physically but brings massive upside, and then you factor in backs like Jalen Warren and Najee Harris, who can both catch out of the backfield, you're looking at an offense that suddenly has options. You're no longer desperate to throw out a second wideout just to make the formation look right. You've got flexibility. You've got tools. You've got guys that create mismatches. What you might not have, though, is a clean replacement for DK Metcalf if he goes down. And that's where my concern still lives. Not in the WR2 label, but in the lack of a one-to-one backup for Metcalf's skill set. Because let's be real, DK is a unicorn. He runs routes that most receivers can't. He draws coverage that changes the shape of a defense. If he's unavailable, or even limited, who's stepping into that role? Not the WR3. Not Calvin Austin. Not Tyler Boyd, if he ever ends up here. Nobody on this roster right now has the tools to replicate what Metcalf does. The deep routes, the physicality, the ability to win 50-50 balls downfield. We've seen what happens when a true WR1 goes down and there's no one who can fill that void. Just remember what the offense looked like when George Pickens missed time. You could put another guy out there, but he wasn't going to do what Pickens does. The plays were there on paper, sure, but the defense didn't have to respect them. That's what worries me. That's why I've been pounding the table for a while now for a backup WR1 type, not necessarily a WR2 in the traditional sense. Somebody like Mike Williams, and no, not necessarily the Mike Williams, but a player in that mold. A veteran. Someone with the size, the route tree, the experience. Someone who, even if he's not elite anymore, can still line up wide and force a defense to make decisions. The Steelers actually had a guy like that briefly. You'll remember they brought in Williams mid-season. He won a game for them, and then they basically forgot he existed. But the point is, he showed it's possible to find that kind of receiver without mortgaging the future or reshaping the roster. You've got free agents out there. You've got names floating. People are going to bring up Odell Beckham Jr. And yeah, I get it. There's history. There's a name. There's the Rodgers connection. But I'll be honest. 9 catches for 55 yards in 9 games last season. That's not just underwhelming. That's a sign. That's not, I'm still training. That's, I don't have it anymore. And I know he's posting videos and insisting he's not done yet. But that doesn't mean the Steelers should be the ones to test that theory. Then you've got Tyler Boyd. And sure, the local connection is there. Grew up in Clairton. Started at Pitt. Spent nearly a decade in Cincinnati. But again, this is a slot guy. Always has been. Asking him to suddenly stretch out wide and run deep routes is asking him to become a different player entirely. And at 30, that's not happening. The team reportedly kicked the tires on Terry McLaurin, too. And that would have been a fascinating move, if not for the fact that McLaurin apparently made it clear he sees himself as a true number 1. And Pittsburgh doesn't need another number 1. They need someone to support their existing number 1. That's a key distinction. Then there's Gabe Davis. Interesting name. Visited a few weeks ago. But there are questions about his health, and that's a red flag when you're already... And you might be thinking, well, what about the young guys? What about the practice squad standouts, the preseason heroes? Don't they deserve a shot? Sure, in theory. But let's be clear. When the lights come on and it's week 1 against a live defense in a real stadium, there's a difference between a camp standout and someone you trust to line up opposite Metcalf in a playoff race. That's not a knock on anyone grinding through the depth chart right now. That's just the reality of football. Experience matters. Chemistry matters. And that's why veterans continue to get chances long after their athletic peaks. Now, let's not pretend this is all about replacing DK Metcalf. It's also about enhancing him. Because here's the truth. Even with all the attention Metcalf commands, defenses are still finding ways to smother him late in games. They're bracketing him, pressing him off the line, forcing the quarterback to look elsewhere. And when that elsewhere option isn't reliable, drives stall, punts happen, games get lost. Adding a reliable outside option forces defenses to play it honest. It opens up more single coverage for DK. It creates room for Jonnu to operate underneath. It gives Calvin Austin the ability to attack soft zones in the slot. It makes the offense less predictable, less reliant on one big play or one hot hand. That's the domino effect of having that second viable receiver on the outside. Not a gadget guy, not a decoy, a real wideout. But then again, you can't talk about roles in this offense without circling back to the tight end group. Because let me tell you, it's deep. And not just in bodies, but in actual value. Jonnu Smith, as I mentioned, has already shown he's more than just a TE. He's a movable chess piece. Pat Freiermuth, when healthy, is a top-tier route runner at the position with strong hands and underrated physicality. Darnell Washington is still raw, but his size alone changes what defenses have to do. And the staff clearly wants to get him involved, especially in the red zone. This is where Arthur Smith thrives, taking these types of versatile, physical weapons and designing formations that break defensive rules. Imagine a look where you've got Jonnu flexed wide, Freiermuth in the slot, Washington in line, and Metcalf on the opposite side. Now, throw Calvin Austin in motion across the formation. What coverage do you even call? What package do you defend that with? You try to go big with linebackers, you get burned by speed. You try to go light with extra DBs, and you get pushed around. That's the Arthur Smith blueprint. Stress the defense pre-snap, then punish the mismatches post-snap. The only thing missing from that formula is the reliable insurance on the outside. One more boundary guy who can win his matchup if the play breaks down. One more guy who forces defensive coordinators to draw a red circle on their game plan sheets. And again, I'm not asking for DeAndre Hopkins in his prime. I'm not asking for a Julio Jones resurrection. I'm asking for competence, experience, and the ability to win a few one-on-ones per game. That's not asking for a lot. Now, if you're wondering why this hasn't happened yet, why Khan hasn't pulled the trigger, it could be a few things. Maybe the price is still too high. Maybe they're waiting for cuts. Maybe they genuinely believe in in-house options. But with joint practices now underway and the opener creeping closer, it feels like decision time. Because at some point, the market will dry up. The options will disappear. And if you don't strike while there's still a few names left who check the right boxes, you're left hoping your WR1 stays upright for 17 weeks, which again is not a plan. Now, let's pivot quickly to the Buccaneers' joint practice itself. I said earlier that it won't be open to the public and media access will be heavily limited in terms of what we can report. And while that sounds frustrating, and it is, there's still value in what happens behind the scenes. Because this is where the staff gets to see how the roster holds up against an unfamiliar opponent in live action without the predictability of intra-squad drills. It's raw. It's reactive. It's where truths are revealed. For example, if Calvin Austin has been lighting up defenders in Latrobe, well, let's see if he can do the same against Carlton Davis or Jamal Dean. If the offensive line has looked sharp in camp, how do they respond to Tampa's aggressive front seven? If Jonnu Smith really is becoming the dynamic weapon, let's see it against someone who hasn't already seen every play in the install. And make no mistake, the players know this isn't just another padded practice. The reps are limited. The eyes are watching. The tape is reviewed harder than most preseason games because this is coachable tape. This is where you find out who understands concepts, who breaks off routes too early, who freelances, and who's ready to be part of a game plan. But again, the receiver depth looms over everything. Because let's say, hypothetically, DK Metcalf tweaks a hamstring 2 weeks from now. What happens? Who steps up? What changes in the playbook? Do you shift Calvin outside? Do you lean more on the tight ends? Do you suddenly go run heavy and compress your offense? That's the uncomfortable scenario that no one wants to talk about, but everyone inside that building has to plan for. And that's why I keep circling back to the idea of making a move. You don't wait until your star is hurt to find out you have a hole. You fill the hole while he's still healthy so that if something does happen, the drop-off isn't catastrophic. And when you've got a defense as loaded as Pittsburgh's right now, the offense doesn't need to be elite. It just needs to be stable. It needs to avoid collapses. It needs to stay on the field. And a capable second outside receiver, even if he only gives you 3 or 4 catches a game, could be the difference between a 3-and-out and a scoring drive. That matters. So to me, this isn't just a WR2 conversation anymore. It's about roster integrity. It's about building an offense that isn't one injury away from losing its identity. And whether it's Amari Cooper or some other veteran or even a surprise trade we don't see coming yet, I still believe this front office has one more card to play. And if they play it right, this team goes from dangerous to legitimately dangerous. Because there's a big difference between hoping your plan works and actually having a backup when it doesn't. I'll say this much. If we reach week 1 and no one else has been added, and the wide receiver room stays exactly as it is, then they better have something really creative in store. Because if not, and Metcalf misses even a couple of games, this conversation will come right back, and it'll be louder than ever. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Rumors are swirling around the NFL training camp circuit after eyewitnesses reported that star wide receiver DK Metcalf was seen limping off the practice field during what was supposed to be a routine scrimmage with the Pittsburgh Steelers. While no official statement has been made by the team or Metcalf's representatives, sources close to the situation suggest that the incident occurred during a non-contact drill, raising eyebrows about whether it might be a soft tissue injury rather than a direct hit. Several players on the field reportedly reacted with concern, and some whispered that Metcalf was grimacing noticeably before heading to the sidelines. The Steelers' medical staff was seen attending to him quickly, but there was no public indication of the severity of the issue. In a league where even the smallest physical setback can escalate into major headlines, the lack of immediate clarity has only fueled speculation. Some insiders suggest this could be nothing more than a precautionary move, while others insist that the team's hushed approach may indicate a more significant problem. The reality is, in August, every injury report, especially involving a player of Metcalf's caliber, can have ripple effects across the league, fantasy football drafts, and even playoff projections. What has made this situation even more intriguing is the fact that DK Metcalf is not officially a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, which has prompted endless debates on social media about why he was participating in their training session in the first place. Some fans believe this could be a sign of a blockbuster trade in the works, possibly involving multiple draft picks and other high-profile players. Others claim it might simply have been a collaborative workout between friends, given that Metcalf has trained with several NFL athletes outside his team in past off-seasons. However, the optics of a potential star wideout going down in an unfamiliar practice uniform have amplified the whispers. A few reporters who were present described the scene as tense but controlled, suggesting that while there was concern, there was no outright panic from coaching staff. Still, it is worth noting that NFL franchises are notoriously guarded about player health, and the lack of public footage from the incident leaves much to the imagination. Theories have ranged from a harmless tweak to a season-threatening ligament injury. And until the curtain of secrecy is lifted, fans are left piecing together fragments of information from scattered, unofficial accounts. In the age of instant news and viral video, the absence of concrete details has ironically made the story grow even faster. Internet sleuths are combing through every available practice photo, looking for clues in Metcalf's posture, facial expressions, or even the bandaging on his legs. Former players have weighed in on television and podcasts, some brushing it off as a minor cramp or hamstring tightening, others warning that such symptoms can be harbingers of more serious conditions. The most dramatic theories, of course, suggest that the Steelers might have been evaluating Metcalf ahead of a surprise mid-preseason acquisition, and that the injury could complicate or even derail those plans. Even sports betting markets have taken notice, with subtle shifts in odds related to potential Steelers roster moves. This level of attention to an unconfirmed injury underscores both the immense popularity of Metcalf and the insatiable appetite fans have for even the faintest hint of a developing NFL storyline. What started as a brief moment on the practice field has now ballooned into a full-blown mystery, and the longer it takes for official clarification, the more the whispers will grow. Adding another layer to the unfolding drama is the fact that the Steelers' own receiving core has been under intense scrutiny this offseason, with analysts questioning whether the team has enough star power to compete in a highly competitive AFC North. The sudden appearance of Metcalf in practice, regardless of the circumstances, was bound to raise eyebrows. Now, with the injury scare, the discussion has shifted from mere speculation to potential contingency planning. Would the Steelers pursue another receiver if Metcalf's availability were compromised? Or would they double down on their existing roster, confident that the incident was nothing more than a temporary hiccup? Fans in Pittsburgh, already known for their passionate and often conspiratorial sports talk, have been flooding radio shows and online forums with theories that range from plausible to wildly imaginative. Some insist that this was a calculated smokescreen to distract from another pending roster move, while others believe Metcalf's presence was entirely coincidental. Whatever the truth, the incident has managed to intertwine multiple off-season narratives, trade rumors, injury anxieties, and the never-ending chess match between NFL front offices into one compelling storyline that seems far from resolution. As the days pass without official comment, the situation is beginning to take on an almost soap operatic quality, with each new rumor adding another twist to the plot. Some insiders claim that medical evaluations have already been completed and that the results are encouraging, though such claims remain unverified. Others suggest that the silence is intentional, designed to maintain leverage in any ongoing trade discussions. For Metcalf himself, the incident, whether minor or significant, will inevitably spark questions about his durability, his future plans, and his potential fit in a new offensive system should a move occur. The Steelers, for their part, have been characteristically tight-lipped, offering no hints beyond the standard no-comment responses to media inquiries. This vacuum of information is precisely what allows such stories to thrive, and until something concrete emerges, every sideline observer, social media commentator, and armchair general manager will continue to connect the dots in their own way. Whether this moment becomes a mere footnote in Metcalf's career or the catalyst for a major shift in the NFL landscape remains to be seen. But for now, the uncertainty is its own form of entertainment. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.